I never believed winter itself could feel alive until the night I almost died in Hollow Creek, Montana, a town so small it barely existed on any map, the kind of place where snow swallowed sound and darkness lingered longer than it should. My name is Ethan Walker, and back in January of 2014, I was driving cross-state for work when a sudden blizzard erased the highway in minutes. White walls of snow slamming against my windshield so violently it felt intentional, like something was trying to force me off the road. The GPS lost signal, my phone died, and when my car finally slid into a ditch with a bone-crushing thud, the silence afterward was unnatural. No wind, no animals, no distant engines, just snow drifting down like ash. I walked for nearly an hour through knee-deep snow before spotting a dim yellow porch light ahead, attached to an old wooden house half buried under ice. Its windows black, except one on the second floor where a faint shadow moved and then vanished. A man named Robert Hale answered the door, his smile frozen and wrong, like he hadn't used it in years, and behind him stood his wife Margaret, who never spoke, only stared at me with eyes that reflected the porch light too sharply. They insisted I stay the night, saying the storm would last days, and the moment I stepped inside, the door shut behind me on its own, the lock clicking with finality. The house smelled like damp wood and something sour underneath, and as the hours passed, I noticed things that didn't add up. No family photos, no mirrors, clock stopped at exactly 3:17, and strange dragging sounds coming from the attic whenever the wind died. That night, unable to sleep, I heard footsteps outside my guest room and Robert's voice whispering my name through the door, though when I opened it, the hallway was empty and freezing cold, frost crawling across the walls like veins. At 3:17 a.m., the attic door slammed open above me, and something heavy began pacing back and forth, each step slow and deliberate, as if counting. When I crept upstairs despite every instinct screaming at me not to, I found the attic empty. No furniture, no boxes, just a single narrow window overlooking the snow-covered woods and deep scratches carved into the floorboards in the shape of human hands dragging backward toward the darkness. And suddenly Margaret's voice spoke right behind my ear for the first time, whispering, "It wakes when strangers sleep." By morning, the storm had stopped too suddenly, like it had never existed, but when I tried to leave, Robert blocked the door, his face no longer pretending to be human, his eyes dark and wet like something that had lived underground too long, and he told me the truth in a calm, exhausted voice, that Hollow Creek didn't let people pass through anymore, that the thing in the woods followed warmth and movement during winter, and the house wasn't shelter, it was bait. He said every year, when the snow grew thick enough to silence screams, it came closer, wearing the shapes of those it had already taken, knocking, smiling, asking to come inside. As if summoned by his words, the temperature dropped instantly, frost exploding across the windows as heavy footsteps circled the house, slow and patient, and through the glass I saw silhouettes moving wrong. Bent limbs, heads tilting too far, mouths opening wider than possible. Margaret began screaming then, not in fear, but in grief, clawing at her own face as the attic door burst open and something pale and towering descended, its skin stretched thin and translucent like frozen wax, its face shifting rapidly between different people, men, women, children, each expression locked in silent agony. Robert shoved me toward the back door, screaming for me to run, and as I burst into the snow barefoot, I heard the house erupt behind me in splintering wood and inhuman howls. I didn't stop running until my lungs burned and my vision went black. And when I woke up hours later, I was on the side of a cleared highway, wrapped in emergency blankets, rescue lights flashing, the storm officially reported as lasting only 15 minutes. Authorities said Hollow Creek had been abandoned since the 1980s, no registered residents, no houses standing, and when I went back months later with police, there was nothing there, no road, no foundation, just untouched snow and the deep impression of massive footprints circling an empty space. But every winter since then, at exactly 3:17 a.m., I wake up to knocking on my door, and through the peephole, I always see the same thing. A man smiling like he's forgotten how, standing beside a silent woman with shining eyes, both of them slowly freezing solid, waiting for me to invite them inside. My name is Daniel Brooks, and I still refuse to sleep with the lights off every winter after what happened in February 2011 near Lake Wenham, Minnesota, a frozen stretch of land locals avoided once the snow settled thick enough to erase footsteps. I was 24 then, working night security at a remote power relay station miles from the nearest town, a job that paid well because no one lasted long out there once winter hit. The cold wasn't normal. It felt aware, biting deeper the longer you stayed still, and the woods surrounding the facility were always too quiet, like they were holding their breath. On my third week, I noticed something wrong during my midnight patrol. A single set of bare footprints leading from the frozen lake straight toward the fence. Long strides pressed deep into the snow despite the temperature being well below zero. Impossible for human skin. I radioed it in, laughed it off with my supervisor Mark Collins, and went back inside. But at exactly 2:46 a.m., every exterior motion sensor tripped at once, alarms screaming while the security monitors showed nothing but blowing snow. Then one camera flickered on the lakeside feed, revealing a tall, thin figure standing perfectly still at the edge of the ice, its body naked and pale against the darkness, its head tilted as if listening. As I watched, it raised one arm and pressed something against the glass of the camera housing. A frozen human face, eyes open, mouth stretched in a silent scream, and I realized with sick certainty that it was wearing someone else's skin in pieces. The power inside the station cut out without warning, plunging me into darkness broken only by red emergency lights. And from outside came a sound I can only describe as ice cracking mixed with slow, deliberate breathing. Heavy footsteps circled the building, stopping occasionally to scrape fingernails along the metal walls. And then, clear as day, through the blizzard, I heard Mark's voice calling my name from the lake, begging me to come help him. His tone wrong. Too calm, too empty. I locked myself in the control room, clutching a flashlight as frost began creeping across the floor, and when something slammed against the door hard enough to dent it inward, a new smell filled the air. Wet fur, rot, and freezing blood. The knocking started softly, patiently, each impact slow and rhythmic, like whatever was outside knew it had all the time in the world, and through the small reinforced window, I saw it standing inches away, taller than any man, its body stitched together from mismatched human parts, skin cracked and blue with cold, its face shifting between expressions it barely understood how to wear. It leaned forward and spoke in Mark's voice again, then another voice, then dozens layered together, telling me it froze people slowly out on the lake, learned their sounds, their memories, and followed heat back to where it could be invited inside. The temperature dropped so fast my breath turned to ice in my lungs, alarms dying one by one as the generator failed. And when the door finally tore open, I ran blindly through the snow toward the lake, knowing I wouldn't outrun it, but hoping desperation counted for something. The ice beneath my feet cracked violently as the thing followed, crawling now, limbs bending backward, its mouth opening impossibly wide to release a howl that echoed across the frozen surface. I don't remember falling in, only the pain of freezing water swallowing me whole and then hands dragging me back out, rescue workers screaming that I'd been missing for 3 hours though I swore only minutes had passed. Mark Collins was never found, officially listed as having quit weeks earlier, and the relay station was shut down after multiple unexplained power failures. But every winter, when lakes freeze solid and the wind dies suddenly, I hear knocking beneath the ice when I stand near the shore, and sometimes when the snow is fresh and untouched, I see barefoot footprints leading toward my house, stopping just short of the door, as if whatever learned my voice back then is still waiting for me to invite it in.